Hello. Hello, everyone.
I hear you.
What are you saying? Yeah, you're welcome, Dr. Timothy, Dr. Shoyinka, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Miracle, Mr. Kenny. You're welcome. So we'll just wait a little bit more to have more participants, and then we can start.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Prof, nice to hear your voice, sir.
Yes, sir. Dr. Tim, happy new month. Oh. Happy new month, everybody.
Yeah,
happy new month to you too.
Thank you, sir.
And to our president, we'll be expecting the new month package. You have our addresses, so my wife is also here.
She can hear you, so
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy new month to you.
Yeah, and the new month package as well.
Definitely. We're going to receive that at the end of today's meeting.
Okay. Physical package.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Stanley.
Are you serious?
You're welcome, Mr. Stanley.
Hope it's not Muji cake. I mean, all this electronic cake and whatever. I can give you my house address.
I pray so.
Okay, sir, no problem. Just drop your addresses in the chat box. We'll send the package.
All right, ma. Happy new month,
yes,
everybody.
Same to you, sir.
Okay, so there are 11 of us now. Mrs. Ugwanyi Ijoma is joining also. And then, Mr. Timothy. Yeah, Mr. Johnson Ogunbile, you're welcome. Mr. Ibrahim Adeniro, you're welcome. Okay, so I just wait like 2 minutes more, and by 2:38 we can kickstart. Hopefully there will be enough number of us before the lecturer arrives by 3 p.m. Okay. Barrister Tolulope Adekola is also, you're welcome. Miss Wetinri Olutomilayo, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So let's just wait two more minutes. By 2:38 we'll commence. Okay, Mrs. Choma, you're welcome. Mr. Ikeoluwa Ogedengbe, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Just one more minute. Okay, yeah, I think now there are 17 of us, so we can commence. Yeah, so for those who have not yet have their full name or their real name written across their name, kindly do so that we can identify and know the participants who joined today's event. So you can do that by hovering over your name and then click on more, and you can finally rename and have your full name written in the correct format. Thank you so much as you do that. Yeah, so I'll quickly give you a rundown of today's agenda. So hopefully we'll be done before 5 o'clock. So we'll start by a welcome address and then the adoption of the minutes from the last meeting, feedback from members, some updates for us, and then to today's major events, the learning forum with Dr. Padmore AMOAH and Mr. Innocent Mutanga. And then we'll close, and then we'll finally make some closing. Okay, so before we start, we would like to commence with our national anthem, the second stanza, which is also our national prayer. So kindly sing along with the YouTube play. In love and honesty, and living God's and truth, love to hide
Thing to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for singing the national anthem and the national prayer. Again, I welcome us all to the ANSHK 2020-2021 Learning Forum. So over the month, we have had several programs, and we try to make a relative reform to the academic forum. So now we call it the Learning Forum. And today we hope to have a theme on celebrating the young and Africans who are making waves in Hong Kong. And speaking to us will be Dr. Padmore AMOAH, a research assistant professor at Lingnan University, and also Mr. Innocent Mutanga, the one who is trying to rebrand the African identity and the Black identity in Hong Kong as ethnic minorities. So before everything, I'd like to thank all members who have stayed with us and those ones who have joined us, even though this is a busy period of the semester, having a lot of reports and preparing for presentations and the likes. Thank you for joining us on this program. I also send my appreciations to all our alumni members also who are following us directly using the WhatsApp. And also a big thank you to members of the executive boards who have been facilitating these programs. Thank you all, and I wish that we have a very nice and fruitful event today. So the next thing on the agenda is to read the minutes from the last meeting, and that is the ANSHK roundtable, where we make some where we made some amendments to the constitution of the association. Mr. Kenny, the secretary, would you kindly do that briefly? Mr. Kenny, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Mr. President. So it's really nice to have everybody here together today, and happy new month, everybody. So now I'm going to share my screen for the minutes from the last meeting. I'm going to just give you a general review. Okay. So, okay. The last meeting was on the 13th of March, and we had about 26 members, including our patron, in the meeting. The meeting started around 2:37 p.m., about 7 minutes late, with the president of our association addressing the members, and he reminded the members to authenticate their registration. After that, he gave an overlook of the meeting schedule for the day, and then we had the national prayer. The president continued by giving his opening remark he thanked them all current members and alumni of the association for their support, and also thanked them all chairpersons and the committees inaugurated during the academic year. The president also anchored the introduction of both new and old members of the association. This was because in the previous welcome session, some members were not some new members were not available. So after that, we had the adoption of the meeting, which was followed after the reading of the meeting from the welcome session. After the adoption of the previous meeting, the minutes of the previous meeting, we had the updates of activities, past activities, and the president gave an outline of the plans for the future. On the update of the past activity, the president talked about the introduction of the Cantonese class, the inauguration of the Constitution Review Committee and their work, and the provision of customized jersey for the studious Eagles. Also, the president outlined the approved plans such as the hiking to Cape D'Agula and the introduction of the coding camp in May. After the update, the former president of the association, Dr. Timothy Olawumi, came in and thanked all the members for participating in the events. He was very much happy about the members who participated in the event because we recorded a high number of participants. Mr. Olani Afolayan raised concerns about the need for more responses from the members of the association, and also asked the president about the visitation of the escorts to the new members of the HKUST community. After the after the updates and the remarks from the updates, we had the voting for the constitution amendment, which was on 11 different amendments. During the amendment, we had different discussions, However, we were able to reach a consensus on the different points. So out of the 11 proposed amendments, 7 were passed and the 4 were rejected. After the voting exercise, which took a lot of time, we had the round table where it was started by the general secretary of the association, and different members were allowed to air their views about it. After the round table, we had the members were reminded about the availability of souvenirs from the past sessions, which are up for grabs, and also there was a reminder for the members to pay their annual dues on time. Then the president came in again and thanked all members for their patience so far, and also expressed gratitude to the members of the executive. Then Mr. Okikiola Gbabaka moved the motion for the adjournment of the meeting, and Mr. Kayode Adesina seconded the adjournment. After which a game of Kahoot followed suit. So thank you so much for your attention. That will be all.
Thank you so much, Secretary, for going through the minutes for us. If there is any comment or any feedback to give on the minutes just read, perhaps there is any correction to be made, kindly do that now. Any feedback from members? Is there any feedback?
Excuse me?
Yes, please go on, Mr. Kayode.
Just a quick one, please. The motion for adjournment was seconded by Mr. Kayode Oyeshina, not Adesina.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any other corrections to be made? Yeah, if there is none, then I think we accept the minute to be added to the archive of our association and as the correct record of what happened in the last minute. Thank you so much, everyone. So we'll quickly move to the next agenda before our lecturer joins us by 3 p.m. exactly. I think it will be on the platform already. So let's just quickly have a run through of what happened between the last meeting and this project meeting. So can you all see my screen? Hello, can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I have to reshare again. Okay. Yeah, I think it's okay now. Yeah, so firstly, on the 27th of March, the Studios Eagles, that's our football players, they had a brief match and played with some local friends. And also on the 3rd of April, that's during the Easter break, we had a leisure walk to Cape d'Aguila, and there were 20 ANSHK members, both male and female, masters and PhD scholars. And and people had fun that day. So also, some quick updates also from the Secretariat. We made available the final drafted amended constitution to members. And then we also tried to resolve the internal issues that we have with some members. We tried to bring them back into the fold, as we are all aware. And also, the past and the present executives went to dinner with Professor Marafa. Then also, between March and now, there have been 3 graduations so far. Dr. Musa Saliu of PolyU, Dr. Bello Umar of PolyU, and Dr. Taiwo Sunday of CTU. Also, during the last meeting, we could not announce the marriage and the wedding of Mr. Wungbile Johnson, our present public relations officer, and also Mrs. Kainel Uyanga also got married a few days ago in Nigeria. And on birth, Dr. Umar's family, they gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. And also some members got postdoc positions and renewals in Hong Kong. Dr. Kingsley moved to Germany, and Miss Adekemi Adebamo was conferred with ICANN fellowship. So is there anybody who wants to give any reaction or anything to the to those updates given before we start the session proper? Any updates from anyone of us? Or reactions?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is Adikemi Adebambo. So I just want to thank you and the organization for celebrating my ICANN fellowship with me. So I really appreciate it. It's actually my first time of joining your session because my schedule has been extremely busy. So I'm grateful and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're very much welcome, Ms. Adekemi. I think our guest lecturer for the first session is online now. Mr. Kenny, can you kindly make him a co-host so that he can share his screen? You're welcome, Dr. Padmore AMOAH. So I think we still have 5 minutes to kill before he starts his, the lecture proper. Any more reactions from those updates? Is there anyone? Okay, if there's none, then I'll call the guest lecturer to be getting prepared. So basically, while we're just waiting for him to get started, about some of the some of the things mentioned in the minutes just read, we will recall that Mr. Olani from HKUST had called on the ESCOs to ensure that new members are also included in the survey made for social and sport events. And we have done that by sending out the new survey email to new members. Unfortunately, we could only get 4 more responses, and those responses were also in consonance with the results we have from previous time. So basically, that means most of the events have been covered already, and in the coming days, we'll be organizing events on badminton, table tennis, barbecue, and other things as well. So I think we should all look out for the announcement from the ESCOs as soon as everything gets get really well planned. Yeah, and also I think Mr. Okay, I can remember now. So Mr. Temitogwai Kinde of PolyU, he also sent some messages on the WhatsApp group, I think a few days ago, about if there will be any cycling events. So we have to remind us that events are planned basically by the ESCOs to ensure the inclusion of all members. So of course, there are some members who do not cycle, there are some members who do not hike. So we do not, we try as much as possible to make sure that events are not organized only to favor some set of people. So you should kindly bear with us on that. And yeah, of course, there will be private arrangement later. And also, we should remind ourselves about the new rules of engagement shared on our WhatsApp group. There are about 10 of them there, and the public relations officer will be sharing them every now and then, I think at least on the first day of the month. So kindly keep to those rules, and then we can help each other to maintain dignity and respect and honor on the WhatsApp platform. Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. AMOAH is on with us now, and I'll just introduce him. Yeah, welcome, sir. So I'll just introduce him, and then we can kickstart the first session. So the first session is on mental health, the indoor generation, and the mid-pandemic tendencies, a scholarly and African perspective. And our speaker today will be Dr. Padmore Adusei AMOAH. I'm sorry, sir, if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Yeah, and the anchor will be myself here. So basically, the session is to talk about the indoor generation, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on scholars, particularly African scholars, and people who are ethnic minorities, and then how that deals with our mental health. Perhaps it keeps we are still excelling, or it drives people into crisis. So, and before we commence, I'll just make a very brief biography about Dr. Padmore before he commences his presentation. So, as I said earlier, Dr. Padmore is a research assistant professor at the School of Graduate Studies and Asia Pacific Institute of Aging Studies in Lingnan University. He had his BSc at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science, one of the prominent universities in Ghana, and then his MPhil in Norway at the NUST. And in 2017, Dr. Padmore received his PhD in sociology and social policy at Lingnan University while being an HKPFS scholar. And in the same year, Dr. Padmore got the position of research assistant professor, and he has garnered up to about 500,000 Hong Kong dollars in research fund. And yeah, Dr. Padmore is a very loving, is an avid lover of football, and as you all know. Thank you so much, Dr. Padmore, for joining us today.
All right. Hi, Mujib. Thanks very much for the nice introduction. Some information about myself I didn't know, actually. That's nice to hear. Thanks very much. I think we have quite a number of people here, but only see two faces. So I was just wondering if it's possible for other participants to turn on the video so that we can see our faces. I think it's to be much better that way. So
kindly turn on your video, please.
Yeah. You gave me a topic in a way, but I actually want to share with you some results of some research surveys that we did for international students, because I thought this would be very relevant. It will help us to probably something we can all relate to in general, but then we can also discuss a bit, especially in the end, if someone or people have questions about issues of research or any issues relating to living in Hong Kong during this pandemic period and others, we can also discuss of the series of things I'm going to talk about in a very quick succession. All right, so thanks again very much for the invitation. Very nice to see so many other African brothers here. Ayo, I can see you online. Take off the cap. It doesn't look good. I know Ayo in person, so I can embarrass him a bit. Good. All right. So yeah, as Mujib mentioned, sorry I used your first name. My name is Padmore Adusei AMOAH, but usually quite complicated to pronounce, so I often go by Paddy. So you can call me Paddy. There's no trouble at all. I prefer that way, actually. And I have an adopted Chinese name, Bai Mo. So if you can read it, I think yeah, if I'm pronouncing it well or I'm not, you can tell me actually about it. Let me see if this works. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I'll show my email again later on, but if you want to contact me or for any form of discussion, either personal or academic, you can always reach out to me on email. I think that would be nice. And just like Mujib mentioned, I had a bachelor's degree from Ghana, then did a master's almost always in development perspective or development studies perspective. And mostly my research relates to social health or society and health issues in a way. And to summarize what my research is about, uh, mainly focus on something I call social epidemiology, mainly looking at social elements and how they affect health and well-being in different kinds of populations, particularly like children, older persons, youth, and quite recently migrants. And actually conceptualize the things I'm going to say today, or the short survey I'm going to share with you today in the concept or under the umbrella of migrants in terms of the kind of research I do. And I tend to relate these into the field of social policy in terms of how governments and other agencies can help various actors or various people and populations to support them. Quite recently, also developing some sort of interest in what we call the China-Africa relation, China-Africa studies. So a bit of international relation perspective, but I try to relate my own research in there in a way. And at Lingnan, what I primarily do, I'm a research assistant professor currently. So what I do mainly centers on research, of course, but then also do quite a number of teaching relating to health, society, health and social services, and some experiential courses also about social policy issues in societies. And I think last semester I was teaching a course about China-Africa relations. So it's getting broader and broader as time goes on. And I also involve some supervision of some undergraduates and master students. And Ayo is one of my doctoral students as well. I'm his co-supervisor here. And I have also other doctoral students. So we, a bit of shameless promotion if you're interested in, or if you're other persons, of course. I mean, I think many of you are already engaged at this moment, but if you want to study a PhD or any doctoral level program, we have a doctoral program in policy studies. If somebody's interested in that, they can always contact me and we will see how that goes. Of course, competitive process, but we'll be happy to have more applications, and then we see if we can get more people to study. Uh, Presently, I am also the associate director of MHSM. MHSM is Master of Health and Social Services Management. It's a master's program, so I'm the associate director and also a coordinator for a program we call the China-Africa Studies. And I'm also on the admission team of our doctoral policy studies program, the one I just mentioned, in a way. So if you have someone who is interested in doing or studying a bit further in these areas, you can always contact me and we can have a discussion about the application processes and other ways or other information that you may have. If you want to know a bit more about my research, you can scan the QR code that you see into a short website, I think on my university webpage. You can see my various research that I've been involved in a way. So today I want to discuss the context that Mujib gave me within about mental health indoor generation or something like that in the midst of the pandemic by sharing with you some survey we did about international students, because I figure many of us here, we share similar characteristics under the umbrella of international students. So I want to share this sort of survey and then draw some conclusion remarks, mainly trying to focus on maybe how we can help each other, how we can support each other, especially within these trying times that we have globally in a way. So that is what I want to essentially talk about. So I think it is no brainer that COVID-19 is really changing the way higher education systems are working, or higher education has been operating in the past year and a half at least. So this is something we are all used to. And in particular, just to go straight forward to the point, in particular, the stakeholders, a key stakeholder, especially in global higher education, refers to those of international students. And if you're in Hong Kong, we tend to add another term to it, non-local students, because to some extent, we consider students from mainland China as a broader umbrella as the international students. But due to various reasons, so sometimes many universities will conceptualize them as non-local in a way. But I think it's all the point is all around the same theme. And globally, if I think many of you will know this, over 5.3 million international students globally in a way, which means their stake in the world higher education system is very high. If you're involved or if you have this number of people and contributing over 300 billion US dollars, at least the latest figure we have like 2016, which I think is probably more given the period that has lasted since this figure was thrown out there. So essentially, they are contributing economically, but then the contribution of us, I think all of us international students, our contribution goes beyond the economic aspect, but then we also contribute in cultural and social aspects. So you ask yourself, why would Hong Kong government, especially, would want to sponsor many of us to study in Hong Kong? Okay, it's not that we are bringing in money to support the economy only. Of course, some of us are contributing to the economy significantly, but we bring in social and then cultural dynamics, some cultural values that are really very relevant to the development of Hong Kong, because you all know a place like Hong Kong considers itself like an international city. And this is why many institutions are projecting or are trying so much to find students and even faculty members from all over the world in a way. So it goes back to the point I was making earlier on about the role of these international students when it comes to global higher education system. So certainly there is a competition for these top talent, students with good grades all over the world. And just like the promotion I started doing, right? We have these master's program, these doctoral student level programs, and we compete. We want to have the best students because that is how we are able to project the university and then also the programs as a top-notch one in a way. So at the backdrop of this, looking at the essence of how international students in general, we will come back to the COVID-19 to see how their well-being should be taken care of or should or demand some sort of attention or probably extra attention, if you will, because of their contribution. And more specifically, even considering the fact that being an international student most likely puts you into the range of a migrant, right? Because many of us are not permanent residents. We are not citizens of the countries that we are in. So essentially, we are migrants, regardless of your education status or the education visa you are holding in a way. So more or less, these people are involved in the education and then also being in a position of a migrant. So in that case, their lives now transcend, especially in the context of fighting the pandemic, transcends beyond just being a student, because now you have to reinvent yourself to be able to survive the pandemic. And if you have a family with you, then it gets even complicated given the pandemic. Now, we wanted to, in this study, I'll come back to it again, to look at the psychological aspect of how the pandemic has been affecting international students in a way. And the topic or the title I put here, psychological well-being, is the positive side of this. But we normally look at when you want to conceptualize these or problematize these in the area of research, then we look at the other side of it, the sources of the distress. What could possibly be causing the sources of distress among these international students during this pandemic? So this sort of distress, then we are talking about issues of discomforting feelings, emotional distress, or experiences that actually affect the well-being psychologically, the mentally of these international students. Theoretically, you realize that I think many of you, we don't even need to go too much into the theoretical aspect of it, but realize that many of us, theoretically, the sources of psychological challenges. Maybe we might not even realize, but these tensions that we have, these troubles that we might, and the second guesses that we have in our head every now and then, are conceptualized under the stress process theory, which essentially tells us that maybe for many people, their health outcomes are affected by areas of their social stress. So I give example here, for example, sudden changes in academic routines, which we can all relate to, especially in the context of the pandemic in a way. So it becomes a source of stress, which can affect our psychological well-being. Another aspect, what we call the chronic strain, meaning that things that keep are persistent, okay, they never go away. And a lot of studies have shown that especially people like international students tend to suffer some sort of discrimination, especially when they move into area where they probably are racially different, okay, or let's say ethnically they are different than others. Racial discrimination, and then also socioeconomic status of many of us, especially if you are comparing to locals, we international students tend to be sometimes disadvantaged in a way. So these are all forms of stresses when it comes to international students and then their psychological well-being. But then to address these, there are other moderating mechanisms, and most importantly, one of them has to do with our social support. The extent that of our social support determine our psychological well-being or the psychological well-being of international students. Of course, this is generic. I'm only relating it to the context of international students. But then during this pandemic, quite a number of research shows that the key word here I want to emphasize is this: overlooked. There, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw that there were a lot of cases or situations of evidence that show that international students' well-being or their psychological well-being was overlooked. Of course, you cannot fault government or many institutions because the pandemic was, for most places, it was like almost a sudden event that nobody has really planned for. So it's more or less also trickle down to international students with some places, for example, at the beginning, when the pandemic started in China, there were a lot of reports, and I believe many of us read it, that Asian students in UK and US and other places were suffering a lot of discriminatory behaviors and prejudices because they felt like, okay, these Asian students, they are Chinese and they are carrying these viruses in a way. And similar incidences have happened even among African students in places like Australia and others, where some research tend to indicate. Now, all these things have contribute to the psychological ill-being of international students. But then, sadly, especially in the midst of the pandemic, the needs of these international students. I don't know about your experience, but I'll share some experiences of other people as we go along. But the needs of many international students have maybe not been met within all these broader contexts of things I've been talking about in a way. So we did a survey, right? I think in the second quarter of 2020, looking at how international students' well-being or their psychological well-being, and then also in relation to their knowledge when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we wanted to see how the experiences were faring, and how the kind of precursors for their psychological ill-being or well-being, regardless of how you look at it. And we started with a survey, and later in the past few months, we've been doing some in-depth interviews that we are still doing. So I'll share some few findings about that with you in a way. Perhaps maybe some of you can relate, and we can have a talk, a discussion about these later on. So we raised some questions, a survey throughout the globe. So it was more or less like a convenient survey, collecting data from as many people as possible. So we fortunately had we had almost 600 respondents across 6 continents who gave us their responses, and around 26 countries. So quite enough across different continents, looking at the various forms of knowledge and their psychological well-being, or the precursors of their psychological well-being, and essentially mostly from different academic fields contributing to their responses. So, but then we realized that the majority of these people that answered our questions were postgraduate research postgraduate students, actually. So I think many of you in this particular category. And at the time of that survey, majority of these students were still in the countries that they were studying. So essentially, they were in the migration status, in a way, if you will. So what did we find from our survey? 3 things: about their knowledge about COVID-19, the potential mental health consequences, and then also some effect on the educational experience. So this is from purely the survey part of it, and then I'll share some qualitative aspects. So we asked some basic questions. I wanted us to do some poll whilst I talk, but the system is disabled. I couldn't figure it. I couldn't work it out. So nonetheless, so I think if we were to do this again right now, the results should be different in a way. But we get a picture of what some of us have gone through in a way, and then we can have a discussion later on about how or why we should support each other more. So we ask us these people if they felt at risk to COVID-19, and you realize that of course there were a significant proportion felt like they were at risk. And mind you, this was the time that the situation was at the worst in a way. But then, so you imagine that you sit or you are in a place and you feel like you are really at risk of a disease that could potentially kill you and has a very higher mortality rate, essentially. Then it's actually a precursor for mental distress. But then, what about how they get the information or the knowledge about this disease? And you realize that at that time it was very difficult to get uh, to find the right sources of information. So you realize, as you can see here, majority of people were depending on their social media. And whilst we are doing a second round of this survey, and when I look at the data yesterday, actually it's similar. They haven't changed. Like the sources of information, it keeps being social media and others. So I ask myself, okay, how can universities do more? How can governments do more, especially for international students? And in places like Hong Kong, it becomes a challenge with the bilingual system. Maybe sometimes some people feel like the priority is on the Cantonese in a way, but the language barrier is maybe something that could also be discussed. So we asked them again about whether they know. We were trying to find different areas of knowledge about COVID-19 in a sense. So we asked these 6 questions, whether they know about the transmission, the symptoms, whether they can identify the symptoms, how to prevent these disease, the information, whether they're able to find reliable information. And the one I'm particularly interested in was whether they know where to seek help if they were to find, if they were to develop symptoms of COVID-19. And you realize that maybe amongst all the other ones, this is where many of them disagreed, that they were not sure about where to find the right information, or sorry, where to seek help if they were to develop symptoms. And again, when I look at the recent data again, which is still ongoing, yesterday I stopped to check, and actually still similar results. I'm actually surprised after almost a year of doing it. So why do people struggle? And it's actually something that showed up in our qualitative study as well. Why are the international students struggling to find the right, to know where to seek information or for themselves if they needed to? So we went ahead to say, okay, is there really a difference in terms of their knowledge about seeking where to seek help and the other determinants or the other sources of knowledge areas on COVID-19? And indeed, if you are familiar with these sort of statistics, you can actually see that there's consistently significant differences, that those when it comes to where to seek help, they were always lacking that information. They were not competent in this area of information. So, and it was always different compared to other forms of knowledge, like for example, the transmission of the disease, the symptoms, how to prevent it, and others. But then when it comes to how to seek help, it was something they struggled with in a way. So I think, and again, something we can all relate to. Has the pandemic affected your academic activities? Of course, definitely. Many of us have experienced, and maybe after I stop talking, we can have a discussion about it in a way. But essentially, this has really affected many people, and whether it's how it's influencing their mental health, I think the qualitative part give us a bit of a sense in a way. I'll share with you briefly. And many people were more or less were wishing to get to the maybe 20, let me say, pre-pandemic conditions. So we are talking about maybe the up to the third quarter of 2019. This is what people were wishing for, that we return back to what we previously knew as the normal in a way. And were people satisfied with the quality of education they were receiving? I think I wanted to do a poll on this, but we couldn't do it. But essentially, there was missed in a way. But certainly for universities, if you are somebody who is in the university administration, this is something you might be concerned about. And then if you're a student, maybe this might be something you might relate, or maybe you have your own idea about the mode of studies and whether it is you are benefiting from it or not. But then what is what were the mental health consequences or precursors of these issues? We asked them, were you worried? And certainly many people significantly were more worried about COVID-19 in a way. So essentially everybody, right? Because talking about maybe 92% of the participants felt like really worried about COVID-19. And extreme worry, it's also a precursor to anxiety, depression, and other mental health. And most in particular, we asked this question because they are international students. Many of them live alone. They don't live with their family and others. So we asked, are you worried about your family, especially those that are not out within your study location? And certainly, yeah, over 82%. So if you compare this, okay, 82%, 82.5, strongly agree, worried about your family. If you compare that, whether they were worried about the COVID-19 in general by themselves, if you compare the figures, you see that people were even more worried about their families compared to being themselves in a way. So it tells you about the diversity of the sources of their potential mental health distress that these people, or some of us, of course, can relate to it in a way. And how about loneliness? We ask this question because loneliness is a very strong correlate of anxiety and then also depression among students and even the general population. And again, you see that many people, okay, around 46% feel like the pandemic around that time has made them feel lonely. And again, I looked at this in a recent survey we are doing, and quite similar. Of course, there's changes, some reduction, but still similar because we still have a lot of these pandemic measures to control social, to control movement, public movement, and then public gathering as well. So we went again into the qualitative study to ask, okay, so how are these factors about the education, the worry about the pandemic or disease of catching the virus and others, how are they related, or how are they corresponding, or how are they affecting their mental health status or psychological well-being in a way? So we asked general question relating to how the pandemic has affected their well-being. We wanted to get their own perspective about the different areas of how the pandemic has affected their well-being. So like I said, we just starting this part of the study. So these are very preliminary things I gathered from the qualitative data. So in terms of how COVID-19 is affecting international students' psychological well-being, PW here, then the first one, of course, has to do with academic. And I think we probably go into some of these quotations and we realize that especially many of us are research students, and especially if you're in the social sciences or probably in the humanities, or even in business fields and others, where you don't have to do laboratory work, but you have to go collect data by yourself. These are the source of where some of our colleagues, some of our friends are facing challenge, okay? Because some of them have to collect data. If you have developed a proposal for the past year and a half and you have to collect data and the pandemic is not allowing you, then you realize that is a challenge. It's even more a challenge in the context of Hong Kong. And a caveat here is that these responses are coming from only Hong Kong. This is not global. Okay, so maybe something we cannot relate to. And very particularly here, this person is talking about stipends. So many universities will offer you stipends for 3 years. So if you need to collect data as part of your study, but the pandemic is really delaying the process for you, and your stipend or your study period is running out, that means your stipend period is also running out. Then how are you going to manage if you are not able to complete your study? Do you have to suddenly change your topic, write another proposal, get a defense, get a confirmation done? That is a challenge. So we see that this is where the problem is. So maybe some of you have been having this sort of challenge. Maybe you are not alone. There are other people who are also somewhere in their rooms crying about this, and we need to understand this perspective. Of course, socialization, just like issues that we asked about loneliness, and this person claims that at some point they just need to step out to see people just pass around within their community, just wanted to see human beings in a way, because their campuses are so lonely, nobody there. You find yourselves in the hallways because you're international students. And going back to my earlier statement that we are migrants, you are not a local. So for local students, they go home, they stay with their family. But if you're an international student, perhaps you are stuck in one lonely apartment somewhere, or maybe in a hostel somewhere, you cannot really relate to. You cannot have somebody to have regular conversations with, and these are the precursors of our psychological well-being. So, how about something I have themed here as unexpected hardship? Now, maybe for many of us, you might think that everybody is on scholarship. No, not everybody is on scholarship getting stipend per month. No, there are a lot of us who are not, who are actually here for what we call the taught postgraduate programs, meaning that these are paid. Sorry, these are tuition-bearing programs. They have to pay for the tuition and then also take care of their own expenses while they study. And the pandemic has shown that many of these people came. Maybe they plan for 10 months, 12 months with a budget, and maybe they probably agreed with a potential sponsor. Okay, I'm going to spend 10 months, I'll come back, and then so I need sponsorship for 10-month period for my tuition, living expenses, and others. And then in the mid of by 2020, when many of these people were supposed to graduate, the pandemic is here. And you see the sudden change of hardship. Where do you get money for your accommodation? Where do you get money for other expenses in a way? So some confess that they were getting depressed in a way. So again, going back to my earlier point, like many of us have, or many students have been facing this challenge, and especially going back to the topic that Mujib mentioned about indoor. We stuck indoors, we don't know what might be going on in other people's um, privacy or the challenges that they are facing in private in a way. These are some of them that maybe we might need to avert ourselves or our eyes to. And another aspects, okay, these are all what has been happening, but what have the universities been doing? Of course, universities have been providing some support, but people have some reservations. Again, going back to the point about the unexpected hardship, some people still had to pay their rent and others whilst they were the pandemic was in place and they were supposed to finish their study. How were they supposed to live in Hong Kong in a way? So maybe university could do more for us, or could do more for international students, especially to waive some of the direct costs for that involves their study and others in Hong Kong. Maybe some people can share ideas about how such situation could be resolved, not just during this pandemic, but then in the future when students face these sort of related challenges. But nonetheless, some people also feel like, okay, the universities have done well in a way, because at some of them, going back again, many of us have been struggling, especially finance. So you see that the last three things statement I've been showing you are all relating to economic hardship that many of us have been facing. And going back to the theoretical perspective I shared with you earlier, these stresses, the social stresses, okay, and for international students, it becomes chronic, especially if you don't have a reliable source of funding and you live in a place like Hong Kong in a way. So these are some of the challenges that some of us, I believe we know ourselves, everybody knows their status better. Some of us have been facing in a way that we can maybe discuss a bit. So what do these mean for all of us? Essentially, what I'm saying is simple. We have evidence that, of course, many international students, some of us can relate, have been going through these financial challenges. Have been going through these psychological challenges, and universities maybe have to do more to help, of course. But then we may also have to do more to help our own selves during this pandemic. And higher education. What we're learning from this, especially at least for myself, is that human relationships, we cannot replace it in one way or the other. Even though we are trying to use different multimedia platforms and others to learn, interact, and others, we cannot really do away with human relationships. So it means something for us. Health literacy, our knowledge about several issues that goes on about health, maybe situations like Nigerian situation and others, maybe this is some topic that we might need to take care of, about issues about people's knowledge about the health and the health systems that they find themselves, particularly relating to something like the pandemic in a way. And again, I raised some critical questions, or maybe some questions that we might need to ponder over at the university level. Maybe time to revisit how different mechanisms in terms of curriculum, and then also how we can connect international students to the local structures, not just the health, but also other support systems in a way. And in particular, in the last part, I'm saying here that maybe we have to have a more collaborative approach where the informal and even formal association or institutions like the Association of Nigerian Students in Hong Kong. This is maybe some things that we might need to take care of, or we might need to intervene a bit more. How some members within our communities might be suffering, or might be going through things we might not see, because when it comes to mental health issues, we cannot see it, right? When people is going through it, if they don't tell you, you don't see it. So maybe some proposal, maybe some humble suggestions, like, again, human relationships matters. We cannot just underestimate the power of our healthy social relationships. So how do we continue? And I'm very happy that we have situations like this and many others that are also supporting. In other studies that I've done among Africans in Hong Kong, especially, it shows a very significant source of issues of mental distress among the Africans, primarily because they are not able to form stronger social relationships among themselves, and then also among with the locals in a way, and this is really affecting them mentally. Perhaps some of us here might be having this sort of issues as well. And again, like I said, we have to find ways to support each other instrumentally. And again, this is just an appeal, especially going back to some of the hardships that some of us are facing financially during this sort of pandemic. Maybe as situations like ours, we should maybe think more how to support each other instrumentally. That means physically, money and others. How do we generate funds to support our membership? Maybe there are ways, avenues to do it. These are just issues that we need to discuss emotionally. It's not just about the cash. Okay, maybe people want somebody to talk to in a way, because at this point, especially with postgraduates, you are stuck in your rooms, always stuck with your research. And the issue with postgraduate or research postgraduate studies is it's very mental, draining. So people just stuck in their room thinking about their own research and others, and they develop different forms of mental problems, anxiety, depression. Can I complete this study? Am I capable? These imposter syndromes. Many students, even academics, faculty members suffer from these. How much more about burden researchers like ourselves? So we need to find measures. We need to find ways to support ourselves. And again, just to end my blab, just to alert you, you can just scan these QR codes. I find this institution, the Samaritan Befrienders of Hong Kong, very useful. If you're facing any challenge with your mental health or any trouble, you need somebody to talk to. Sometimes you might not be comfortable talking to a friend about the challenges you are facing. Maybe these are anonymous people you can talk to in a way. The Hong Kong Education Bureau also has some resources and that you can also reach out to in a way, including the social welfare services. It's not always about money or instrumental services, but then other emotional support that we can also obtain from other sources, especially within this period where we can barely see each other because of various regulatory issues. Okay, so Bujid, this is what I wanted to share with everybody. So I don't know if we have any time for short discussion or anything. Thanks very much, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much to our guest speaker, Dr. Paddy. He's giving us a very nice presentation on the topic. Yeah, I really got a lot of information and a lot of ideas from this presentation. Thank you so much for that inspiring presentation. And I hope that all our members, our audience, have also really benefited from the presentation he has given so far. So, and also, I also would like to say it's really something of joy, something we're really proud of to have one of ours to be a research and a teaching faculty in such an institution like Lingnan. We're very proud of you, sir. Thank you for the good work and for improving the African image in Hong Kong. So we still have some time for people to join the discussion with a question and answer session. If you have any question, kindly please share it using the chat, or you can raise up your hand and then turn on your microphone. Anyone with a question? Okay, but while other guys are still picking up on their question, Dr. Paddy, please may I ask a question? Do you see this a kind of a mental health pandemic coming up after this COVID-19 pandemic has been eradicated, since the vaccine being developed? Do we foresee a kind of a mental health pandemic?
Okay, a mental health pandemic. Actually, I don't have data to speak, so everything I'm saying is just of my own impressions. I think we already have it because we've been going through this pandemic in the past probably 18 months or so. We already probably have this sort of mental health pandemic going on. And if you read a bit of the literature, especially in the context of international students, this is this is already a pandemic in a way. Maybe I wouldn't call it a pandemic, let's say epidemic in a way, because many of us are facing different challenges. Even before the pandemic, the challenge of burden researchers working with supervisors and others is something that has been a source of mental distress. So in the midst of the pandemic the pandemic is another layer, in my view, of this mental health distress. And post-pandemic, I think this is something it will probably keep going. And maybe if you realize, many universities have been changing their strategies in terms of mental health support and others. And these things, I believe, are going to stay because students, just like any other population group, are very fragile when it comes to mental health issues. So yeah, I see that going on in a way. But then, thankfully, if we keep with a good societies like ours, and universities are also working hard to support students, I think certainly this is something we can over. Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Adekemi has the question. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Paddy, for the valuable insights that you shared.
Please call me Paddy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paddy, for the insights you shared. Although I've not met you personally, I've heard your name a lot amongst conversations from the African students and those that completed their PhD. So I'm actually interested in pursuing a PhD, and I would like to, because most times the challenge is always, okay, how to select a topic. Like I'm currently a taught postgraduate student of international banking and finance. And while you were talking about your field, I had some interest. So I'm thinking for someone like me from the business field, what areas would you suggest that I could consider for doctoral studies?
Okay, so yeah, thanks very much for your question. Of course, this is not about the topic I just discussed, but I'm very happy to discuss with you any issues about study that you may have as well. So thanks for the question. So this is from a bit of my experience, okay? Because I've had a bit of experience in admitting students, interviewing students for research postgraduates and other taught postgraduates. So what I would say is, if you are in one field and you are transferring to the other for a doctoral level program or an advanced program, it's quite difficult to convince admission panels that this is the change that you want to make in a way. So first, maybe you might want to stay in the field because this is where your strength, according to your academic records, this is where your strength lies. So for example, if you're in business and you want to transfer into something like my field in sociology, social policy, or something related to public health, it might be difficult to prove, okay? Of course, you can do that with a very strong proposal, and that is, but your transcript and other records might not be able to support you as well in a way. But to apply for these, I always tell students, you have to develop a relationship with supervisors in a way, potential to supervise. You have to contact people early with your ideas, your thoughts. Normally, many people will not reply anyway, but keep doing it. Somebody might find your ideas interesting, might find your enthusiasm interesting, because what at least my experience have taught me is that sometimes it's not only about your record, academic records. It's also about your personality, how persistent you are, how motivated you are, right? And your sense of independence that you project in a way. So I believe for your case, maybe you might need to stick to the field, like I said. But then, yeah, so develop something which is quite related to maybe an experience you have previously. In a way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Paddy. One last question, please. The question is just going to be a combination of several snippets. So first, the question is directly about the increase of work from home schemes around nowadays. So looking at it from the perspective that while you're working from home, there's this removed psychology of a home is the home, and then the office is the office. The psychology is removed, and also the psychology of working while you are working from home. It's either you are putting in a lot of, a lot of extra hours, or not doing anything at all, just sleeping most of the time. And also at the same time, while looking at while you are working from home, the less interaction with people you're working with. Now, combining these 3 or 4 things together, what can you say to us about this work from home scheme that have become to stay nowadays?
Okay, that's a huge question in a way. So maybe, like you said, if you work from home, it's quite challenging to work from home. I don't know where home is, but at least speaking generally in Hong Kong, we are all very conversant with the accommodation, the housing issues in Hong Kong, right? So working from home is not something that is very easy for many of us in a way. But then what I would say is maybe you need to understand your own environment much better, especially in this particular time, to see where is the best place for you to work. I think so, because for me, actually during all this pandemic, I've been coming to the office. I hardly stay at home because of the issues that you actually raised, because I have a baby at home. Okay, so it gets challenging to ignore the cry, the noise, some of the noise that comes up. And then, like you said, the bed is always tempting in a way. So I think it's about individual, you have to be able to see the conditions that you find yourself and then make the best of decisions, at least where to work and then even the time that you can work, because everybody is different. I know many of us Africans who are nocturnals because they come here, the time difference is so long, and then they start to work in the night and they can never change throughout their PhD and they complete with it, actually. So you may need to find your own conditions. You have to really study your environment quite critically when it comes to this. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. One last question also from the chat. Someone says, thanks so much for the excellent talk. I can say in the past few months, the main issue among faculty meeting centers about mental health depressions amongst Asian colleagues, but I don't get to hear much about Africans. Do you think there's some cultural factors preventing people, Africans, from talking, preventing Africans from discussing freely mental health issues?
Okay, so yes, very good question. So I think maybe if you talk in the context of Hong Kong, again, Africans especially, according to some numbers, there are only 3,000 or so, about 3,000 Africans in Hong Kong, in a way. So if we are talking about what goes on in the media or what goes on in the public space about these discussions, it probably may be common to find those relating to maybe the locals, which may be maybe ethnic Chinese or other Asian as well. But actually, these mental health issues are also predominant among Africans. And obviously, we are all aware about the stigma and then our cultural related issues that prevent us from discussing it, especially like in our context, from where my background, if if you're a man and you have some mental health challenge and others, and you would want to discuss, you may feel stigmatized in a way because think like, I'm a man, I should be able to deal with it. Someone might think I'm weak. These are cultural things that we probably grew up with in a way. Of course, many of us are learning different because of education and others. But what I would say is actually some Africans talk about these things. Yeah, because I made mention of a study I previously did among what I call economic migrants in Hong Kong, African economic migrants. Okay, so our brothers and sisters, or maybe mothers or fathers who are in Hong Kong not for education at this moment and others, a study amongst them. And it shows like very clearly the challenges that they are facing mentally. And for example, some of them said, well, you sit in a train and then maybe you sit in the midst of a local and then they get up. Maybe they get up and some people think, oh God, they don't like me. Maybe it's because of my race. Maybe do they think I'm smelling? I smell bad or something like that. So many of these other colleagues are going through a lot of these mental health challenges. That's probably, like you said, the outlet to speak might not be there, or they may not be conversant with it. That might be the problem. But I want to, again, to end up with that, I would say there are a lot of channels, especially if you go back to the link I shared earlier on, when the QR codes I shared about different places to get mental health support. There are a lot of avenues for people to seek this sort of help. But at least these are all, let's say, official governmental services. So again, Mujib, I'll rest the issue with in front of your door that these organizations that we have like this are very valuable, especially when we find ourselves in places like this, and we shouldn't, under no circumstance, undermine it, because this is a place for us to seek the actual support. It becomes the first phase of seeking mental health support, or even addressing these challenges in a way. So I think this is a very strong avenue, a channel to entering the system in a way.
Okay, thank you so much. We have someone raising hand. Mr. Ayomide.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Padi, for your talk. Okay, I'll be very fast. You kind of touched on my question from your last response, where you said groups like this are very valuable for supports in terms of mental health. But then I would like to ask, like, is there a way associations like this can also maybe partner with the schools or institutions, that is universities, to provide support for members and for African students? I don't know if you can suggest avenues through which we can partner with universities to help our members, basically.
Yeah, very good question. So I think I made one of my points was about collaborative efforts, and I think I used association again like this as one of the avenues. So you realize that in many universities there is this sort of hostel, a structure about student services and others. These are the points. If you reach out to them, to the leadership in these institutions, okay, if you reach out to them that, okay, we have these sort of groups who might have different concerns, especially about the mental health and other issues. So please, we want to reach out to them. We want your support to give them the relevant services that they may need. I am very sure that they'll be much more, they'll be more open to support, because for many of them, especially counseling services, that it's very difficult for people to approach them to seek these sort of services. So if an organization wants to partner with them, I see no reason why they wouldn't. But then it's up to that sort of conversation to knock that door and then open that conversation. I believe many universities, especially when it comes to the student services offices, this actually is part of the work that they do. And naturally, they try to find partnership, or they try to find avenues to work with student groups such as these ones and others. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was a really, really nice presentation and a very good discussion session with Dr. Padi. Thank you a lot for accepting the invitation to speak at this forum. And we have really benefited a lot from it. We hope that we can still partner with you next time to have such a wonderful session like this. On behalf of ANSHK, I'm thanking you a lot. I'm appreciating you for the time despite your busy schedule. Thank you so much.
No worries, bro. No worries. Thanks very much, everybody, for listening. Thanks very much for your questions. I wish you the very best in your research, and especially dealing with it throughout this pandemic. It's not easy for everybody, but I'm very happy to see many of you. I think some of you are actually in the office. Oyes Sina is in the office, I can see. And then also Ijama is also in the office. I can tell she's working in a way. So that is how it goes, you know. So please keep at it. If you need help, like I said, please kindly reach out. Very happy always to talk. And if you want to reach out to me as well, you can talk to Ayo. He's a good friend. So you can always go through Ayo to get to me if you are finding it difficult to get. Always happy to talk to people. Thanks very much, guys, for listening. Have a very nice evening. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, okay, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us through the first session. So the second session will start in a few minutes. The discussant, or the speaker, Mr. Innocent Mutanga, is already online, and I'll give over the encourage to Welfare Officer, Ms. Mistura Salaudin.
Thank you very much, President. We're going to start our second session soon. And the second session is titled The Other Side of Hong Kong, the African Community and Black Expats. So the speaker will be Mr. Innocent Mutanga. So he will be talking to us about, how to be, Africans, how to survive and thrive as Africans in a predominantly Asian community. So I would give a brief introduction about Mr. Mutanga. Mr. Mutanga is a Zimbabwean, and he was the first refugee to win a right to study and the first to graduate from a university in Hong Kong. He gained a degree in anthropology from the Chinese University of Hong Kong in 2017. And Mr. Mutanga has volunteered in many roles in Hong Kong. He now works as an analyst in investment bank Goldman Sachs. He co-founded the African Center Hong Kong in 2019, which champions the rebranding of Africans and Blacks in Hong Kong. And it also serves as a creative hub regularly, hosting cooking classes, art jams, films, and book clubs, and workshops covering everything from belly dancing to drumming. So Mr. Mutanga is also, the co-founder of the platform, The Wandering Voice, which is an online platform where domestic helpers, refugees, and ethnic minorities can tell their stories. Thank you very much, Mr. Mutanga, for joining us. You may begin your presentation now.
Thank you. I'm really excited to join you guys. Just to check, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm really excited for this opportunity. So that I can be able to share some of my experiences in Hong Kong, and hopefully some of that could be helpful in some way. And and feel free again to drop in any questions while I'm talking. Of course, we can wait until the end if that works. But it's always good to to gather up what people are thinking about as we are having the conversation. Yeah. So I am from Zimbabwe, and I came to Hong Kong, in a very unconventional way in many ways. I came as a refugee when I came to Hong Kong, and I was homeless for some time while I was here, and I think, during that time, things were very rough, of course, which sort of in many ways speak to the latter part of why I thought having a center, like an Africa Center would be very important. If I had come at the time when there was an Africa Center, I think I would have started somewhere else. I would have probably have gone to some place like the Africa Center and be able to, to navigate the place. But when I came, there wasn't anything like that. The first Africans I met when I came, that's about, more than 7 years ago, we're actually sleeping on the Star Ferry, which, that's with the first Africans I met. And that wasn't very glorious to look. And I'm like, okay, is this going to be my story as well? That I'm going to be, sleeping with, on the streets. Is everybody here? Of course, that part is something that I had to also go through. But and then after some time, I ended up having to fight to go to study here. After I realized that, I think I made a realization that Hong Kong, I think I felt like it's a place that if I work hard, and if I there's a place for people who work hard. And I feel like it's very important that if I work hard, and then I'm like, what? So how do I go about it? And that's when I decided, what? I will go to school. Which wasn't easy, because when I tried to apply to go to school, they were like, the universities were like, oh, you see, your qualifications, we're not sure if that's solid enough. So they had to ask me to go back to high school, and take the examinations, that local students took it. And I did. Of course, that took quite a lot of humility, to be able to, say, I'm going to take an examination, as a student, but once once later, I got to start in school, even before I started studying in school, I think one of the things that I felt is very important to thriving in a place, or even just figuring out the direction that a place is taking, is being able to, it's like getting into a river. And when you get on a river, it's important to know which direction the river is flowing first, where are the rocks, what kind of rocks, are there crocodiles inside, and I think that's what I did during my homeless period, was try to understand the place, and I spent a lot of time doing that. Once I understood it, I knew very well, beyond the shadow of doubt, that in this place I can succeed, and I know where the river is flowing, where are the rocks, how to dodge them, because I spent a lot of time, a great deal of time, trying to understand the people here. I think I gave up trying to make people understand me early on, because I realized I was one person and there were 7-point-something million people. Getting 7-point-something million people to understand me, I don't think that's gonna work in a very short term. Like, what can I understand there? And to be able to contextualize, what they are doing, in a sense. So, so I think that was a lot of what I was doing when I was, still homeless and, in a very rough place as well. I recall about 2 years later or so, and then, there were other Africans who come in. You probably read some of the stories on news, like, oh yeah, I got on the MTR, and people stood out from the MTR. You've probably seen this yourself. Of course those things happen, but one thing that stood out in most of those stories is the lack of understanding of the local community, which was, for example, somebody say, oh, I went on the train and I was wearing this very nice deodorant, perfume, and and I got in, and then people stood out. How can people stood out? I took shower even 2 times and I had very good perfume. I'm like, yeah. Now it's harder to tell if it's because of race or not, because you were wearing deodorant. People here don't like deodorant. People here don't like to be people who are going around with a lot of perfume. That's what happened. That's why people stood up. But of course, it doesn't mean there is no problem. People do stand up. I mean, when such things happen, and people do ask a lot of questions. And one of the things that I learned early on was that I needed a little more grace in my interactions. Of course, it's easy to get offended if somebody thinks Africa is a country. But there is more important things to focus on than being distracted by these tiny little things. That I'm offended because somebody doesn't know where my country is. I'm like, come on, let's not be hypocrites. I mean, I'm from Zimbabwe, and a Zimbabwean average kid or adult, they think the first thing that when I call somebody right now in Zimbabwe, like, oh, how are you? The first question that they ask me, I hope they have not fed you dogs yet. So basically the ignorance is, equally there. Like, like, I hope they have not fed you dogs. That's kind of the perception of our people as well when it comes to Chinese people, which is problematic in a way. So the need for grace, the need for, understanding that, what, an ordinary person would usually have a lot of these ignorances, and and it's easy to get caught up in it. It's easy to make a total big deal of that stuff, but I don't think it will help us to get anywhere if we get so much entangled in those minor, issues, being thrown at us. If you stand up on the when I'm sitting, you stand up on the MTR, that's fine. I'll sit a bigger one. I mean, it's just an understanding that we are in a different place as well. I think some of the questions that I would get when I was new, and still get those questions, like, oh, Innocent, why your hand here so black and here so white? They like to ask that one. That's like their classic main question that I would usually get asked, especially among the kids. But yeah, I mean, no doubt, a lot of people in this place, they approach me as a Black person or us as Black people primarily with a bit of cautiousness, very cautious and very curious. Those are like the 2 main things: cautiousness and curiosity. it's very easy, of course, to take some of the analysis, from whatever we read, Western dominant societies, and say, oh yeah, why are they asking these things? Why are they doing this? They might be racist. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely racial prejudice here. But, I think for me, I just decided that, what, I don't have time for this. If anything, I'm going to have to rise above these, these everyday, abuses that come from people, why should I be entangled in these things? So, yeah, I ended up going to university. I went to the Chinese University of Hong Kong, studied anthropology there. And then later on, I get an opportunity to do an internship at Goldman, as already highlighted, and so I do sales and trading there. And I've been there now for some time, and I think it's been a great opportunity again, a very, very important opportunity for me overall in terms of just understanding how markets work around this region, and how perhaps we can take some of that back home, But within that space, as a Black person, as an African, I feel like it's very hard for me just to, to get my big paycheck from the bank and just go and enjoy it myself. That's just impossible. And it's like, we gotta have to do something. That's the thing. We just have to realize this is the nature of being African. White people, they don't need to worry about that. They don't even worry about their parents. They just move out of their house. They are doing their own life. For us, we need to send money back home. We need to, we got, people coming with problems and different things. So a lot of these things as well. So it's, so for me, when I started the Africa Center, with the goal primarily of rebranding how people think of us. I don't know how familiar we are with this, but in this region, the only access to Africans that was there for ordinary people was through charity organizations. So when somebody thinks of an African, they're thinking of somebody who, who probably, flies on their face, hungry, they think you're there to look for help. So we needed to rebrand that image. Like, how do we rebrand? Let's change how people think of us. Let's change how people, look at us as Black people. And that's how, sort of like the idea of Africa Center was born. And the other aspect of the Black consciousness part, which is like, guys, how do we as Africans be proud of who we are? It's very common that an African, if I say to an African, yeah, let's bring our food, potlucks, why can't you? The other person is afraid to bring fufu and peanut soup, or their own egusi. I'm like, yeah, bring the egusi. Why are you ashamed to bring egusi? They're bringing their own culture of food. Like, oh, are you sure they're gonna like our food? I'm like, yeah, if they don't like it, well, that's their own problem. We have to be proud of who we are, proud of our things, and without no reservations. So for me, that was, one of the things that I said, how do we learn to be proud? I remember we started this program called the Kids Club program. The first time I asked the African kids to write or draw what comes to their mind when they think of Africa. Oh my goodness, they wrote all these negative things. And these are African kids. I'm like, no, we gotta do a little learning. These kids already think that's his interior. We ask kids like, oh, do you think your hair is beautiful? They think, no, I need to be straight. I need to be, all these things, these are some of the things that, if somebody's growing up in a society like this, it's harder for these kids as well to be able to navigate that. I think, what I'm hoping to do here is to, I want to keep a lot of this particular time to do like, back and forth, and, hopefully you guys can raise some questions, some of the things you want to hear. Of course, that sort of give you a panorama of my, my experience so far. But, if you guys have any particular things that you really want to hear more about, you can ask, and if you ask me to talk about something more neat so that I'm a little bit more relevant, and I'm not repeating what some other speakers are going to say or have said already. So I'll pause a little bit and let's see if you guys have any comments or questions. You can probably unmute yourself or send the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutanga. Your story was really inspiring, and we really appreciate you very much, for coming to us to give this talk. So I would open the floor now for questions. If anybody has questions, you may ask.
Okay, thank you very much, Innocent, for your inspirational story. So I would really like to know, how did you transition from being homeless to having a home? Because that's really a major jump. And how are you able to combine your work at Goldman Sachs with running the center? Because I know that as an investment banker, it's quite tedious already. So how are you able to manage both worlds? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start with the last one first, and I'll go to the first one on managing, between my work with the center as well as working in a bank. Yes, I had to make some sacrifices. And number one, I had to make some sacrifice. Of course, I'm not going to be sleeping as much, and I'm not going to be, having a lot of fun elsewhere like other people. And that's definite. It's just, these are just choices that has to come with making these kind of choices. But some of the strategic things I did was to live in a place like where I live now. So, I live in a place called Tinsowai, and I work like in Central, and the center is in Timsache, so, that's about an hour commute to go to Central from home. And by that, I'm able to gain two key things. One is that while I'm on the bus or on the train, I'm reading a book. I'm reading some publications, which in many ways equip me in my running of the center as a whole. So I began to, pick up all these things, and then when I come, maybe I have talks, I have lectures, I'm running some workshops. I've already been reading naturally. So I strategically just, decide where I live and how I can use that. And the second thing is by living where I live, I'm able to be part of the society. Going back to the river analogy, I want to be sort of having my finger on the pulse of the society so that I know how it feels. When I'm making my decisions, especially with the center, I kind of know where Hong Kong people are feeling. Like I'm really embedded within the culture. So I don't have to put a time aside to go and learn about Hong Kong culture or to get, to get updates on how the community is feeling or how the community is feeling about A, B, or C. So I'm naturally there. So I think these are some of the things that I had to, to strategically be able to position. And of course, within my job as well, I had to communicate with my seniors that, guys, you might have to understand my flexibility here as well, because I got a burden, I've got something that I can't stop doing work with the Africans, that's just me. So I would, I might need to run out at some point, maybe sometime but as long as I'm delivering my work. So I needed to be able to communicate as well, getting my manager, looped in what I'm doing. I think it's a great help so that there's not too many surprises. He knows that I have a big event with kids. Maybe the next day I'm gonna be exhausted. He's in that particular case. So a lot of communication and a lot more strategies and a lot of sacrifice. I can't undermine that as much. A lot of sacrifice, that has to happen as well. So I think that was, and I was lucky as well because, my girlfriend as well, she's working at the center. That's very lucky in some way. If she wasn't there, that means I needed to spend more time elsewhere. Oh God, that would have been tough, But the fact that, you're there and then we're there. So it's like, every day we are together. So that's easy, So I think I was very lucky in that particular case. So those are some of the things that I did, in a sense. Then on the being homeless and end up, having shelter, it was a couple of bumps. The first form of shelter I got was a group of sex workers from East Africa. So I don't know, the phenomenon is not as much as before. So I met one of them in the actually 2 stages actually. Before that, I started doing some little painting stuff. So I was painting people's guest houses inside. It's indoors, and then I can sleep in there. I get a meal. So I did a lot of painting. I still have my clothes painting. So I did a lot of painting in the houses, and then I get some space. Not in guest houses, and then I get some space. And then I later, find some good friends who were doing sex work, and then I figured, they told me that they don't use their space at night. So while they are working at night, and then I can sleep. Oh my goodness, that was a relief. I feel like I've been upgraded to a palace. It wasn't a very comfortable place if I measured from my experience now. But then I was like, yeah, man, this is like the best thing I've ever experienced. And then from that stage, and then I ended up starting doing some teaching English. So I went to this church, and then I spoke with the pastor there. Luckily, that pastor had been to Zimbabwe at some point. I told him, yo, man, this is just life. Things. This is where I am, but doesn't mean I'm gonna be here forever, man. And he managed to convince some parents to have me teach their kids. So when I was teaching their kids English and whatever I was teaching, mathematics or something, and then I was getting some little bit of money. And then I remember the first day I got the money, I actually booked an actual hotel. Like I blew all the money in this hotel. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take a big shower, And I just slept there, and I called my buddies who were also homeless. I'm like, guys, let's go enjoy a little nice sleep. Yeah, and then we slept. And then with that, I think with that connection with that pastor, and then then a lot more things. Before I knew it, I was, some people were interested to hear what I have to say about things. Because I had experienced so much things. The professor is researching on sex workers. I'm like, I know all of them. I know everything. Maybe I work as kind of like some bit of a research assistant, connecting some of the researchers with some people. I did all kind of things. Before, of course, later on getting into school and then moving into a hostel. Which was like, my goodness, I cannot believe I am living in a proper space. But it was a journey, but it was exciting. I will not change it for anything really. I'll make that thing clear. I think my experience as homeless has sharpened me very well, and I will not change it for anything. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is great. And I think, that time shaped me a lot more in terms of my understanding of value, my understanding of people, what's important. When you are homeless, people treat you like shit. So you see people in their real elements, in their real colors. So you actually get to understand people for who they actually are. And I know people now, my goodness. I think I've been sharpened to know people, and and that translates as well in my job in finance as well. Because at the end of the day, banking is about people and numbers. And I think I know people. If you ask me, I got it from my school on the street. So that's sort of like a long answer to to that short question on that. Any questions? Yeah. Thank you.
Following from your sharing, you mentioned, some of the prejudices Africans face here, and which is quite right. Many of us face a lot of, very subtle prejudice, and facing such things, it is easy for us to isolate rather than integrate. So I would like to ask, what practical tools or skills can you offer to help Africans integrate into the local community better?
I think the first thing is, don't get offended too quickly. I think you really a person needs to have a little more grace. I'm telling you, it's gonna be offensive most of the time. But it's a lot of ignorance, like probably Jesus said, forgive them, they don't know what they are saying, So it's gonna be a lot of ignorance. So not getting offended and just giving people the benefit of the doubt, and to understand the context, because a lot of our anger, because once I see something, I would start being angry and then I'll condemn it, but I'm condemning based on my own context, not on the context of the people that I'm talking with. So I think being slow to anger and being slow to judge, I think is, for me personally, I think that is key. And then after that, educate some people, in whatever way. But I know for a lot of people, it doesn't mean being African. It means it means we are all discriminated. Some of the people here, they come, from countries, they discriminate other Africans, their own country, right? So they never really experience being on the other side. So the experience is not there as much. But I think I've been in different positions where I had to deal with people in that particular sense. But on the other hand, one of the key things with these things like discrimination and all that stuff, if a person is really confident of who they are, and that goes back again to the whole idea of Black consciousness, which you also advocated at Africa Center. If I'm so confident who I am, I don't really think if somebody thinks of me otherwise, I don't think it's going to affect me really. So there's a huge need for self-learning as well among our people as well, that it helps us to be in a very confident place. So that's what I probably say in that in that aspect. I think there's some question.
Yes, there are some questions here. The first from Mr. Stanley. Yeah, he wants to understand how you studied anthropology and how you found yourself in investment banking.
Yeah, anthropology, investment banking. So, a step back. I was very much into numbers when I was a bit more younger as well. And then there was a point that I felt like it was too much numbers, that I wasn't too much people as well. But when I moved into anthropology, I'd experienced so much things. I wanted something that can actually be able to, explain a lot of these things. Honestly, I didn't think I was in a position to be doing calculus when I want to understand the world, because the world has been opened up to me a bit more too much at a very short period of time. But then from after anthropology to banking, here's the thing. I don't can say, no offense to anybody who is studying very, certain programs, but anthropology teaches somebody to think. Anthropology prepares somebody for anything really. So I feel like I was actually the most prepared among my colleagues, especially for the industry that we're entering. When I was there, of course, I didn't know how to price a derivative. When I walked onto the trading floor, I'm like, what is a derivative? Or swaps? What swaps are you talking about? But those things you can learn. That's the attitude, right? Like people who can learn fast, people who are hungry to learn. And that's exactly what I had to do. I had to learn in a very short period of time, very steep curve. And I was in some way competing with people who not only studied finance, but also have had their first internship when they were 10 years old, and I didn't know what an internship was. I'm talking about people who, if anything, all their life is prepared to succeed. These are the people who I was competing with. They have uncountable internships. And me, what internship? I didn't know what internship was. Computer, I never pressed one, before I finished A-level in high school, and I'm talking about people who already, not only that, I'm talking about people who already been trading already, in their own personal accounts, trading. I'm like, they ask me like, oh, show us, do you have a passion for markets? I'm like, to be honest, I don't know, but we used to, grow a little maize with my mother. Does that count? But I think it was mostly, the hunger to learn, and the ability to connect with people as well, in a certain level. So it was not easy. I want to make that very clear. Resilience was a huge part of that, because I'm talking about, I get on the trading floor, and then, the trader on the desk, he only has literally 20 seconds to explain a concept to me, and I don't even understand a word that person is saying, and I still have to be there. I'm given a task I need to deliver. So it took a lot of resilience as well. A lot of people were crying. I remember during the internship, people were crying, literally crying, because they just couldn't handle it. If you're familiar with trading floor, it's very, very fast. So it's so there was a really a bit of that as well. Yeah, so, and then the other question is, okay, I'll come back to the Africa Center. How did you manage with the language difference? Was it ever a barrier to you? Okay, language difference. Here's the thing, I was very honest with myself. I knew that there's no way I'm gonna compete with a local in terms of language. No way. And I'm not white. If you're white, they don't care about what language you speak. There is no way I'm gonna compete. I decided to have an edge. Yes, language is a barrier, but I have to find another competitive advantage. And the edge that I decided to have is to understand the culture. I want to understand the culture and the people more than themselves. They understand themselves. And with that, I'm like, okay, speak your language. I think I know exactly what you guys are up to, because I kind of have a sense of. So I decided to take the channel of understanding the culture. Yes, do I speak some language? Yes, I can actually do speak a little bit of the language, but it's not good to be doing, to be discussing, the markets with that level of Cantonese that I can speak. It's good to impress, some people on the streets, but it's not good for me to actually, do proper business. But yeah, it's good to appreciate the culture. I think that's very, very important, to appreciate the culture. Gone are the days when the only thing you needed to know was the white man's culture or the white man's ways, and then you are good. You succeed after that. That time is gone. Right now, people need to understand and appreciate or show appreciation of other people's culture. And culture is not chopsticks and spoons, believe me. A lot of people reduce it to that, right? I'm an anthropologist. Culture is beyond that. And that desire and honesty to do that will be great. I'm telling you this is one of my disappointments with Africans, especially here. A lot of Africans don't even want to try local food here. Tons of them don't even want to try. You ask them, oh, have you tried? Oh, no. I'm like, food is the main part of any culture. And we know if a Chinese person comes to our country and then they don't want to eat our food, do you think we're going to be happy with that thing? Of course not. But a lot of Africa, it's just those simple things. I mean, like just being open to exploring, of course, if you eat halal, yeah, just find where the halal is. There's tons of Chinese restaurants which are halal. I know there are food limitations, but those small little things are actually very crucial to appreciating the culture, to appreciating the people. I'm lucky I can eat anything. Like the Chinese people say, eat everything with the back to the sky. I eat anything, so I'll be able to get into all these things and be able to appreciate that. Get a little bit of appreciation. Who are the Hakkas? Who are the Chaojos? Like this. There are all these different nuances. It's easy to say, oh, Chinese people, but it's a lot more complex. And I feel like that opened doors for me more, not only in my career and even in a restaurant, man. I always get a lot of extra food, just because, I kind of get a sense of what the people is up to, in a sense. So I cover that in that aspect. And then for the Africa Center, our mission is 3. One is Black consciousness, which is basically getting people, Africans or Black people, to be more conscious of their Blackness and be proud of who they are and really exhibit and show it out there with no, sense of inferiority of whatsoever. No need to, to change one's hair, no need to bleach one's skin. This is more important, especially for younger people. The other thing is rebranding Blackness, as I highlighted earlier, and being able to change how people think of Africans. Now they think of us as what? Dangerous, poor, but, think of us more accurately. And then the other thing is to connect people, a platform where people can connect. Because before, whenever there's an African, especially outside of Africa, there's probably some NGO or some charity people or, with very, very unequal power relations, very toxic ones. So we try to balance those things. We do these things in multiple ways, cooking workshops. Today, we just had a Nigerian cooking workshop, by the way. We cooked some, some semo, some egusi, and okra soup. And we don't try to change it. Like, yeah, guys, this is our food. You're going to have to love it. If you don't like it, well, that's your own problem. So we do art jamming, drumming workshop. We run a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops in corporations. We run workshops in schools. dance workshops. We also have dinners, by the way. These are probably more interesting because like tonight, every Saturday we have a dinner meet up. The idea that people meet up and of course eat and get to connect, like today it's going to be South Sudanese dinner. Every Saturday is a different African cuisine, including the African diaspora, like Jamaica, Haiti, and then, Saturday and Sundays, we have networking lunches. People come to network and have lunches, which I hope, some of you guys will drop in if you have never been there before. I think it's a great platform in that particular sense, that people do utilize, But here's the thing, 70% of people who are coming to our center are Chinese, okay? We need more Africans. I'm like, hey guys, why are we almost entirely Chinese? Where are the Africans? Of course, it indicates the population. I think Blessing has a question. Huh?
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mutanga, for your very inspirational talks and very motivated life. So I'm almost 3 years in Hong Kong, and I think recently in the news, maybe I heard about your story, or maybe here in our ANSHK group platform. So my point is that many of us, like myself as an example, we don't really know about this organization before the recent time. So I'm like, it would be good if you have a plan for partnership, like a group or the academic group like this, and where some of us can also brainstorm and see what we could do, because you're really doing a good job. You're really doing a good job trying to build the African image and try to correct some of the, the misconception of what African community really is and all of that. So I'm just thinking, then I also want to ask, like in my research group here, my boss would actually love to have some kind of African cuisine. And I don't know, maybe your center permits such that one day I could find a way to bring these guys together. Yeah, we have Americans, we have Hong Kong, Chinese people around. I have Chile friends who would love to. So I just want to know.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, the last part, yes, definitely we can organize, we can cook for you guys, bring all the friends. We can cook some very delicious food. You can always do that. So on the partnerships, it's something I'm very passionate about, in a sense. So initially I tried to do some reaching out, but now there wasn't much positive traction. But I literally hired somebody now who is going to primarily be focusing on partnering, with primarily the African students who are coming here in Hong Kong. Some of them are coming as masters or PhDs or some, what's in undergrad. Connect with them from the start. Because one of the things I also observed is that 1 year, especially for masters, is not enough to secure in good relations to be able to get a job quickly or to do all those things, and just to add more value to the African communities in Hong Kong already, which I think is very, very, very important. So, there's one girl from America. She's gonna actually reach out and start having this conversation, the partnership, and see what's the direction. That would be a main concern, to actually just look into that and see how we can build something together. In a sense. So yeah, she's still in quarantine now. I think because she had to fly here. But I literally hired it just so that she can focus on that, because that's how important this is to me personally. But yeah, one of the things we do, you got friends, or you want to come as a group, sometimes people don't know where to take their friends to introduce them to Africa, right? It's a very comfortable place to do that. You can just tell us, or if you want to join the already public events we have, great, you can do that. But if you want something more tailored, more special, more separate, yeah, just let us know. We can always prepare. We are always excited to do that. Some people are coming for a party next week as well, birthday party. Which I think, it's good for people to do those celebrations as well. Yeah, okay. I think thank you. I saw question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mutanga. Can I quickly ask a question, please?
Yes, yep, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So it's so nice to have you speak to us, and I think it's almost like we have 4 individuals speaking to us at once. You have some part of your life in Hong Kong as a refugee or asylum seeker. You've been a volunteer. You've been a student, and then now you've also joined with the expat community. So I think maybe you've covered almost about 70% of the African image in Hong Kong. So basically,
Yes,
I just want to ask now. I think maybe the only 2 you have not covered yet is being a footballer and being a business tycoon. So yeah. So basically, I want to ask now in the Black community, we have those who are full Africans, and then we have those who are either Brit African or maybe African American.
Yeah.
And then again, we also have sectioning between these guys now. We have refugees, students, we have volunteers, we have experts. Do you think there's some kind of a kind of gap between this set of people? Do you think there's a gap between the normal African and then the Brit African, the African American and the likes? And then do you think there's some kind of prejudices directed towards only those guys who are on the lower bottom of the spectrum? And also, do you think, even as Africans amongst us, I mean, even as Blacks amongst ourselves, is there any differences in relating with each other based on these socioeconomic groupings?
The answer to that, a short answer is yes to all those questions. I think I'll quickly unpack at least some of the observations I've had. Let's say from a Chinese perspective, an ordinary Chinese person probably think an African American is more superior than an African from Africa. If 2 Somalis meet the first time here, they are new in Hong Kong, and one is from Clan A and one is from Clan B. Clan A think is more superior than Clan B, and then but when they come in, they stay longer, they start realizing, we are the same people after all. So the African consciousness, it's really what I advocate for, because I think the only way for Africa or Africans, and by Africa and Africans, I mean even including African Americans, to succeed is for us to first to be conscious of our own Africanness and be able to join together and be able to realize that, after the end of the day, we are the same people. The thinking of being different was literally planted by the whites at some point in the past, that we think of ourselves as, because they knew that, for example, Haiti, fought, beat up the French, and then the people they don't want to associate with these brave people who beat up the French, that we can also do the same things in other places. And then they create that sense of these are called Haitians, which is just nonsense. We are Africans at the end of the day. What keeps us behind is definitely that. There are certain people who probably think for the sake that they come from country A, they are more important than others. There are all those things, but again, this is a lack of consciousness. This is pure lack of our African consciousness, which is the one string that keeps us together, that without, because my success is intertwined and tied up to every other African, whether the African admit that is African or not, the whole world think they're African, and they have everybody, so to be able to actually put things together, it's usually, I think, that direction that there are problems, definitely. As you highlighted, being a refugee, African refugee, among this whole spectrum, you're probably the one at the bottom of the Africans here in the community. Not only the Chinese thinking of you that also your fellow Africans may think of you like that. That nobody actually probably thinks they want to bother even talk to the person. Here's the beauty of being me, as you probably highlighted. I can go in different identities in different events. Sometimes I'll just go in a place and I'm a refugee, and I see how people treat me. Other Africans, I see how they treat me. At some point I go as a banker, and I know how people treat me. I see how people treat me. I can go as anything, So I think I'm lucky. Sometimes I go as a social entrepreneur, and I see how people think of me, and I see how. So it gave me enough, data gathering opportunities, in a sense, to realize there is this problem. But I think the fundamental issue, lies on the lack of African consciousness. The pride that I think I can put it this way. I think I'm not going to praise any group. I was about to praise a smaller group for being very conscious, but I'm not going to do that. But since all of us need to really work hard to be able to do that. So that's sort of like my analysis of those caste system that exist among the African communities here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mutanga. Do we have any other questions? Okay. There is a question from the president. It says, do you feel overwhelmed by trying to be 100% every time to avoid slipping up and affecting the African image, as felt most by Africans in Hong Kong, given the fact that Africans believe in, Ubuntu?
Repeat the first part. Do I feel overwhelmed? Can you repeat that one?
Yeah, do you feel overwhelmed by trying to be 100%, African every time?
Every
so
time.
that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
consciousness, yeah.
Overwhelmed, yes, but can I give up? No. It's like it's like a little fire inside. Like you can't run away from it. It's like, there's nowhere. You gotta have to do it. You have to do it. Like there's that thing in me that, what, I can't give up. There are times I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. I want to go and sleep and heaven. Why can't I be normal like everybody? But then I realize, 2 minutes later, I can't run away from it. So it's is it tough? Yes, it's tough. Do you know how I feel, for example, seeing a Black person in America beating up a Filipino woman? I mean, for me, that's like, oh God, why is this person doing this now? I mean, I thought white people are the ones that are supposed to be beating up the people. Why are our people doing the same thing? Like, why are you, a Black person, maybe, rapes a person, or a Black person does something bad. I'm like, oh God. Oh yeah, but on the other hand, that's also a sign of a problem. Like, why can't we Black people have the right to do something bad without being attached to the whole group? White people can do something bad. Nobody's gonna go around thinking this is what people like. Black person, one person does the same thing. I know if today, I saw last time a Black lady stole something in a shop, and every time other people go into shops, and everybody's very concerned, like, oh, Black people are coming into a shop now. It's, of course, when there's success, it's great. Oh my goodness, when I enjoy it all, But so the overwhelming is definitely there. But is there giving up? No. There's still a long way, and I think we have a chance. And that's the last point I'll highlight. We have a chance. In these 10 years, there's transition. It's not a secret. American hegemony is going down, 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 down. And this particular region, particularly China leading, that is going up. And it's a huge transition. This only happened in 100 years at least. So it's our time to really, change the narrative. So I won't give up, at least not in these 10 years, because I think we have something to do. If we don't do it now, then we probably going to be in the same position in the next 100 years again, because the Chinese are going to just behave like anybody else. The person with power always behave nasty unless you really change how they think of the people. So that's why I'm really, committed to not really give up.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mutanga. And I must say that your story is very inspiring, and your work with the center is highly commendable. Okay, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the second part of my question is about this feeling and philosophy of being African. Like we have this this feeling and the need and the want to be acknowledged, like the Ubuntu philosophy.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, definitely.
You see, like I think Chinese and Hong Kongers are almost subtle in their ways. Even, I mean, sometimes the racial abuse and the racial slurs, they're done in such a way that it's kind of in a subtle way. You don't want to say, oh, this is being racial or not. But yeah, you feel there's kind of like a bad energy flowing around. How to make this interplay?
Yeah, I mean, as and you highlighted the concept of Ubuntu, right, which is something I'm passionate about as well. Being, acknowledging, seeing other people, seeing how we as a people are made because of the other people as well. If somebody discriminates against me, I actually feel bad for them because I think they are missing out a great opportunity to be able to interact with me in a position that they can actually gain something from me. You have no idea how bad I feel for people. I'm like, why are you really thinking of me in that way? Well, you're gonna miss out something, because here's the thing. In the past, it was you could discriminate and nothing will happen to you. But right now, and it would affect the person you're discriminating. But the direction things are going, the one who discriminates, or the one who is prejudiced, is the one that has a wrong view of the world. And whatever decision they are making out of that prejudice is gonna be not good. And if you are not making good decisions, it's gonna come back and bite you. So prejudice, that's why I don't bother trying to teach white people to like us or to think of us differently, because it's gonna kill them. The prejudice is what is killing them now. They thought, why should we listen to a black guy who is running the World Health Organization? And look where they are now. COVID is almost gonna wipe them out. But because there's that, that's just a simple example of something that I think people need to not have. So prejudice, I think it harms the person who carries it, more than the person whom it's targeted. So for me, I will just not allow that to affect me as a person. And I'm like, you know what? I feel really bad for you. You know what? Yeah, go ahead. But your life is gonna be really bad because the future is really gonna determine people based on their intrinsic value. And that's one of the main features of the hegemon that's coming up as well. But one of the things that I'm hoping to educate people here, is this concept of Ubuntu, right? And I think that's something beautiful that we Africans have. A lot of people here, they feel like they're not seen, and we have that as Africans. We've got a lot of these things. We as Africans have dealt with a lot of uncertainties, a lot of this, and we can bring all that stuff and we can bring to a society which is struggling to figure out. And I think that's our way in as well. So I've been in NWA preaching Ubuntu all the time when they come to the center. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate your talk. It was really interesting. And I would like to add that our association will be very, very happy to collaborate with the center. So please do let us know in any way we can help, even if it is with, the cooking and the dinner stuff. We'll be very happy to, come over to collaborate. So much for
Thank you. Definitely. I'm looking forward to, to seeing some of you and talking in person. I want to hear your stories as well. Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
All right, over to you, Mr. President.
Yeah, many thanks to our guest speaker for the second session, Mr. Innocent Mutanga, for such an inspiring, a thought-provoking, and such a beautiful session and discussion we've had so long. So we hope next time we'll still be able to make more collaboration and more invitation to you in the future.
All right. Thanks a lot. For anyone who wants to connect, we can connect on LinkedIn or anywhere. It'll be good to connect more. Thanks a lot. I'll leave, and you guys have a great. I don't know how many more sessions you have, but have a great time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who have stayed with us. I think we still have about 30 or 31 people online now. Thanks so much for staying by us during those two sessions. I hope we've all enjoyed the sessions, and we've all had one or two things into our knowledge bank. And we quickly just move to the AOB section before finally ending this meeting. So you could share your voice, any opinions, anything you want to discuss for 5 minutes, please. Yeah, you just turn up your microphone, put it on and speak up. No need to raise your hand. So I'll leave it on for maybe 1 or 2 minutes and see if anyone. If not, then we'll proceed.
President.
Yes, please, Dr. Bayo, please.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is we need to collaborate with the center. Maybe one of our outings will be one of their own, with ensure it collides with their own outing day.
Okay.
So now people connect with the center.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I forgot to thank Mr. Mutanga for that. But while we were inviting him for this talk, he actually proposed to us that if we want to have physical meeting, we could come down to the African Center. But just because as at that time, the government regulations were not really very strict about allowing more than a certain number of people to stay indoors. So yeah, as the CDL gets better, we will definitely find a way to bring up some events and some nice fun activities to make collaborations. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Please speak up, guys. Someone is asking about item 7. I think the welfare officer is in the best position to answer that.
To take the question from Mr. Olani first. He's asking if there is a collaboration with the African Center and how we can utilize it.
Okay, yeah. So right now we do not have a direct collaboration with them. So we just got in contact with Mr. Mutanga, and yeah, there are plans in the pipeline towards achieving this. We'll just share it as soon as things are in place.
So for the item 7, if you would all please drop your addresses in the chat box, we would have your meals delivered to your houses. Thank you.
Any other person sharing their opinion?
Yeah, I think what we can also do is, President.
Yes, sir, I'm listening, sir.
Yeah, we may also look at, as I shared with you before, see how we can bring maybe someone, entrepreneur, someone, expert, okay, maybe both, either one African, one non-African, that can share their own insights about how they're able to thrive in Hong Kong. So okay, it will help us. It will help those who are the members. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, sir.
Because after school, there's life after school. So how do you navigate that aspect? So you may decide to bring an expert in different sphere to share their own insights with the members.
Okay, thanks a lot for the suggestion. Anyone else?
Can I say something?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I'm thinking a center like that should host some galleries. So in our part, our organization could think of what we could do from the Nigerian setting, coming up with images such that when people come around, they could see such images, they could interact with such, it's something like an act information, a picture, something that I'm not sure if I have the right word to describe what I'm trying to say right now. But the point I'm trying to make is any contribution that could come from our side such that it promotes what Nigeria is all about, just like every other African group might also see that and also do that in time. So that when the local people come around or the other foreign people coming to Hong Kong and having an opportunity to visit such a center can also have an idea of what it looks like. Now, I'm saying this, for example, I think I once saw an image where an African was a museum, I think in mainland, where you have an African image and you have a chimpanzee or a monkey stuff and something like that. You know, that is a very, very bad way of depicting what an African. It's very obvious what they're trying to say, even when there are no written words. But you could say, oh, trying to say similarities, oh, very similar, trying to compare who we are with an animal. So that's a picture image, sending some information to people who are unaware of what these people are actually all about. So we could start in our own little way, small way. Sometimes in the future, it grows and becomes a bigger thing that will continue to educate the people. So that's just what I want to say.
Okay, yeah. Thanks so much, Mr. Blessing, for such an insightful suggestion. Presently, as we know, in the top echelon of the African Center, our patron, Professor Marafa Lawa, is actually very much a very huge stakeholder in the African Center, and it's been really helpful to them about securing the acceptance and fundings from the Hong Kong government. Also, Mr. Patrick Ogu, I think our colleagues in PolyU will know Mr. Patrick Ogu. He graduated from PolyU. He's also one of their co-founders as well. And so we'll also do our best to try to bring up better things and make, and add to their collections and how African is depicted and how African is conceived by people in Hong Kong. Thanks so much. Quickly, I'll share some other details and news to us. So yeah, so basically for some of the major events we have here, we've done the roundtable, the learning forum. And in a few weeks from now, we'll be having a research forum on the June 19th and general elections by the end of the fourth quarter of the academic session. Also, we'll be having a beginners coding bootcamp in the last 2 weeks of May, where we hope by that time, everyone will have been done with their academic pursuit in terms of assignments, projects, presentations, and exams. And also, we're having some activities also dependent on government rules, football practice on May 15th, table tennis and badminton, volunteering, as well as barbecue party. Of course, there might still be some other events which have not been mentioned yet, as Dr. Bayer and other people have suggested. We'll try as much as possible to fix it in our schedule. Of course, within our budget limit. Yeah. So to cater to the research forum, as I mentioned, which we hope to hold by June 19th, we have set up a research forum committee and an electoral committee. So as we can see, the committee is made up of a single member from each university, and as well as a master's student. So we have people, Mr. Blessing Adeoti will be the chair of the research forum, and members Mrs. Juliet from CTU, Mr. Bamile Ola from Baptist U, Mr. Ayomide Oladoshu from Lingnan U, Ms. Chiamaka Okoli from Chinese U. And for the electoral committee, Mr. Iwe Idorenyi from HKUST, Dr. Umar Bello from PolyU, and Ms. Anu Oluwapo Oluwadari from Lingnan. So these our colleagues will be responsible. They will be responsible for organizing and making sure that the research forum and the election goes in the right way. So I think in the next few weeks, you should expect the emails from the research forum, from the research forum committee, in order to make it a success like we did last year. Also, we should not forget about the annual deal for memberships. So for PhD full members, the annual deal is a minimum of $500, because I know there are some big moguls here who can afford to pay $2,000. Yeah, so it's a minimum of $500 Hong Kong dollar to be paid into this account or to be paid directly to any of the executive board member. So kindly do us kindly pay off. There's no money. Yeah, kindly pay off the annual due as soon as possible. Thanks so much for your support all the time. And again, please do not forget, we still have some souvenirs from previous years. Of course, as we mentioned, usually every year we'll have souvenirs for members. So these are some souvenirs that are left from previous years. 2 medium size, the Chinese medium size vest, like the one I'm wearing now, and 9 vacuum flask, which have temperature sensors as well to monitor the temperature of the liquid you have inside. This goes for 60 Hong Kong dollars, and this goes for, and the shirts goes for 100 Hong Kong dollars. Kindly contact any of the executives to do that. And please, you can also make connections, make contact with ANSHK using any of these platforms with our Facebook page. You can invite friends who want to know about Hong Kong and about the education in Hong Kong, the ANSHK YouTube channel, by our Gmail account, and of course with using our website anshk.org. Yeah, and I think that's basically everything about today's meeting. So as a closing remark, I really want to appreciate everyone for staying with us for over 2 hours now. I hope the time was a really well spent time and a nice investment we've done. I'm really, really thankful to us for giving us the Executive Board Committee the opportunity to serve you, and for keeping on supporting and giving encouragement, giving us suggestions, giving us recommendations. I want to thank everyone for doing that, and we hope we'll do more exploits in the future and in the days to come. Thank you so much, and we wish you have a nice day. So basically, I might go. Of course, I want to end the meeting now. But for people who are also interested in playing some card game, they can stay behind after we move the motion for adjournment. So kindly let 2 people move the motion for adjournment so that we can end this meeting by 5 p.m. exactly.
President.
Yes.
Yeah, someone asked about the annual due for master students.
Yeah, yeah. For master student, I think for master student, we are aware that most master students may not have the funding opportunity like PhD students have. So for master students, they have to pay 300 Hong Kong dollars, not the basic 500 Hong Kong dollars for PhD students. Thank you. Have I answered the question?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, thank you. So if there is nothing else to talk about, can someone...
Yeah, President, I have a question, please. Yeah, thank you for actually setting up the committee for the upcoming research forum. And this is the first time probably every one of us are getting to know those who belong to that committee. So I don't know, maybe we need any official prompt from the executive to start anything.
Yes. We will give you the full time of engagement as soon as possible today.
All right. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Any other observation, opinion? And then if there's none, and I think please 2 people should move the motion. 1 person moving the motion and 1 person to second the motion.
I move the motion for adjournment.
So Dr. Bayo Shojobi is moving the motion for adjournment. Someone to second the motion?
I second the motion for adjournment. I, Kwetere Olutomilayo, hereby second the motion for adjournment of this meeting.
Okay, Ms. Kwetere Olutomilayo is moving the motion, and I declare this meeting adjourned till next meeting in June 19th. See you guys then.
Okay.
Yeah, people who want to wait behind for the carry session can also bye-bye. See you. So anyone want to wait for another carry session? Is anyone waiting for this?